Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. Today, we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, branding. I'm here with Chase Neely, who's the co-founder and president of Leverage Brands. Chase, you have an unusual background as both a creator, right? You majored in voice, and then also a lawyer. Now, I can't say too much about that because my partner, he went to law school, he was a lawyer for a while, and then he left that to go into movie making. So I think there is a connection there, but I love that. And I want to hear all about your background and how that prompted you to create the creative agency that you have today that helps other people leverage their brands.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Annika. I am thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to talk branding too. Like you, one of my favorite topics. You know, I have often thought about why I have taken the career path that I have, and I think it comes down to passion. Yeah. And for me, the passion is to see people who have outstanding messages or incredible talent reach their full potential. And so I've been able to do that both as a branding expert, which is kind of where I started in college and continued, but also as an attorney. And I still maintain that practice for that reason. I get to work with a lot of really, really talented people and help them reach their full potential, whether through making sure that their rights are exploited in the contract or whether they're exploited online through their online presence. And so to me, yes, it's uncommon and it doesn't feel discongruous to me. It feels like something that makes sense when you look behind the reason, which is that passion.
Yeah. Well, how did you get involved in branding when you were in college?
You know, I say college because that's when I first got paid to do it.
Okay.
But back in South Carolina where I grew up, my dad ran a lumber company. And one of the things that I remember doing first, and he was great to let us do things like this, but he was sponsoring the local minor league baseball team in South Carolina. Now they're called the Spartanburgers, which is great. That's a great name. But back then it was a Phillies affiliate. And so I was charged with writing the commercial, the radio spot for the sponsorship. I think I was 8 years old. You'd have to double check that. But I think I was about 8 years old. And so I had the ability to go in and say, well, what do you want to be known for, Dad? What's the one thing that separates you from everybody else who's out there? And I asked those questions as an 8-year-old, and they're the same questions I'm asking as a 37-year-old at this point. And it's not new questions, but it's new iterations and new versions, whether it's in the digital space or in college when I worked with a best-selling author who was a manager for the Beatles back at Capitol Records, the Circle building out in LA. And I got to ask him the same question. What do you want to be known for, Ken? And we did a Beatles night for the book launch for his new book. And that was so fun. And I've gotten to continue to do things like that probably before I should have been allowed to, is how I feel. But maybe it's also a natural inclination to just think, well, how are we going to cut through the noise? How are we going to get through everything that's out there to distill this to the core of who you are? And if we can do that, we'll have a brand that's successful because it's true to who you are and it's true to what your audience needs.
Yeah. Did you continue on this path of helping entrepreneurs, helping people launch their brands and their businesses while you were getting your degree in voice and then as a lawyer? Did you go practice law somewhere and go, you know what, my passion was really this brand thing?
Along the way, I've had a lot of different opportunities pop up and a lot of like near misses, to be honest, in either field. So either going straight into the brand thing or straight into the law thing. And as I've gone along, it's kind of directed my path that direction. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I love to say I've never been hired for anything in my life. I can't win the job interview. I don't know what happened along the way, but it just doesn't work out. And so what I've been able to do is kind of not have to choose whether to do the law thing or to do the branding thing. And now that's kind of melding into a really neat thing that our company is doing, which is acquiring messages for thought leaders so that we can steward those into the next generation. So whether that's a book catalog or an online presence for somebody who has this personal brand, we can acquire that using my intellectual property background, but also exploit it using my digital marketing background. So it's a really unique iteration of what we're becoming as a company, which is a message steward. We're stewarding that messages into the next generation.
Yeah. I love hearing that. During the pandemic, I worked with a law firm that was based in Houston, Texas, actually. And one thing that was unique about them was that they loved to work with creatives. They were working with people who were, musicians. That's where I trademarked the name of my podcast. Things that we don't always think about when you're in the creative arts, or even would work with tattoo artists on making sure that they were copywriting their designs. And I think we forget that this creativity is more valuable than just, that we do need a trademark. We need to have copyrights. We need to think about those issues, and we need to think about really how we structure the business. So I know your law degree comes in really handy with that and helping really help people structure what the world of work looks like on the business side. And then on the creative side, the brand building, what do you see as the biggest issue when people come to you and want to do something, but they're not quite sure what?
Okay, this is the copyright nerd in me. I have to pick apart one of the things that you talked about with the copywriting, the tattoos. This is so interesting. I used it as a case study in my class, and I bet it's that law firm. There was a tattoo artist who sued EA Sports, which does the video games, because they were using the actual tattoos of the athletes in the game. Yeah, that's
because
so cool.
They had, because they had licensed, the athletes had licensed their name, image, and likeness, but the artist,
Right?
That is so cool.
You don't think about these things, but lawyers do. We sit around and we're like, I wonder how we're going to get paid for the tattoo that's in the game of the athlete that they did. And I bet it was some of those Houston tattoo artists.
Wow.
From the NBA players, right?
Interesting.
Anyway, so that's neither here. But let's go to your next question. I think that a lot of the times when I see somebody come in, they tell me I have a message for everybody. That might be true, right? But it's really hard to break through anything if you're talking to everybody. You need to talk to one person. What's your core message for that one person? And if we can identify that, or if you've already found that, one of the things that we can definitely do is exploit that message. And when I say exploit, that's the legal term, giving it the best chance to succeed.
Right.
Exploitation can have negative connotations. This is a positive version of that word. But we want to do that so that you can reach as many people as possible. But to reach as many people as possible, you got to talk to one person first, because it has to resonate so much that they tell their friends about it. It has to resonate so much that they are thinking on your behalf of other people who need to hear that message and sharing it for you. And if you don't have that clarity, then it's going to be really tough to break through, regardless of the platform you're coming from. We were working with a CMO who's had all the credentials, all the bona fides, had taken a company from 7 figures to 8 to 9, really, along that pathway. All the credentials you can imagine, but he couldn't identify the one person he was talking to. And the more that we tried to identify it, are you trying to talk to real estate agents? Are you trying to talk to business leaders? Are you trying to talk to teenagers who are trying to become something? Like, where are we going to? And he's like, I can talk to all those people. Great. But until you can talk to one of them, you can't talk to any of them, because nobody wants to hear it, right? The bona fides don't mean anything until you can resonate with one person. You got to be that change for one person.
Yeah. And I think that's something that can be difficult for people, is to think about who. Yes, to your point, I can talk to all business owners who want to start a podcast. Okay, but what does that mean? The way I do things might not fit exactly what they're looking for. And what's more, that's not the right market, because then you're just throwing it out into ether and there's no specific message for anyone to get hooked into. This is one of the things I really, I love geeking out on talking about brand and why it's important. Now, when you think about brand building, are you looking at personal brand, professional brand, or do you believe that they're one and the same? Because I definitely have my thoughts, but I'd love to hear your take on this.
I think they can be the same, but usually they're distinct. And so if you are, and I would love to hear your thoughts too, because if we need to disagree, that's fine. I'm happy to learn. That's one of our core values. We want to always be learning. But if you think about as an employee at a company, your company has its brand that you're supporting and doing things with, but you also have your personal brand. And from a personal brand perspective, that's what you can take with you as an employee, either up the company or out of the company into the next one. And so that's where it's distinct, is when you're not at the top of your brand. If you're at the top of your brand, it's going to align. And if it doesn't, then you're going to run into issues as well.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that, as we've built leverage brands, we've had to clarify along the way, who are we going to be? Mm-hmm. Are we just going to talk to thought leaders? Are we going to talk to thought leaders and message bearers and innovative company? How broad are we going to go? And when we got to down to, I'm going to talk to message bearers, and really I want to be the steward for that message into the next generation, that's when we're going to start seeing the momentum.
Nice. Yeah.
But we got to get that specific. And the great thing is that's congruous with what my passion is and my business partner's passion. And so that's aligned from the company level and from the personal brand level, but that's because we're leading the company.
Yeah. Yeah. My argument, and I think this probably also comes from being an entrepreneur most of my career, is that they are very aligned, because I believe even if you're going to be the best employee, you're not going to be the best employee at a company that doesn't align with your personal values and what you see as your purpose, vision, and mission for this lifetime, right? And so I think that's where people go into a job and they go, oh, I don't really they start feeling uncomfortable. I think that's why we see a lot of Gen Z leaving jobs, quitting or quiet vacationing or what, doing these different things that we hear about, because they're like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. This doesn't really align with my values. I really need to look for that. And I'm a little bit of an older generation than that. And, I've seen that a lot of people just, okay, well, you go get a job, you work at this job, doesn't matter if you like it or not. But now we've really had this shift and transformation to where people want to feel good about what they're doing. They want to know that the work that they're doing and the way that they're doing it and people they're surrounding themselves, you don't have to agree with on everything, right? But you have to have some alignment.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Annika, when you're talking that through, I agree with you for the most part. I think the other thing is that when we first get that inclination of who we're going to be as a personal brand, a lot of the times we go almost too narrow to where you can't see other iterations of how that passion can be fulfilled.
Absolutely.
And so you're setting an expectation for yourself, but in that expectation, you might be setting yourself up to fail because you're like, well, if I'm not a software developer at one of the FANG companies, then I'm not fulfilling my passion. Well, it might be a startup, and that startup might be acquired. There's a lot of different ways that could become your personal brand. And so you just have to kind of take the path that you're going to be led down. If you had told me when I was in college or about to go to college that I was going to be an attorney who helps Grammy Award-winning songwriters and excellent producers and artists and New York Times bestselling authors in a marketing company as well, okay, sure. Well, that's one way that I could do it. You got to be willing to take the journey where it leads you through the opportunities that you're presented, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and that was my next question is you work with a wide variety of creatives and thought leaders and message bearers. So how did you narrow down who you work with and find your sweet spot? And it sounds like maybe you work with a few other people like that could be outliers or adjacent to the initial core persona.
Yeah, I think that for me, I have always been attracted to outstanding talent. I want to work with the best in the field.
Nice.
And for whatever reason, I have been able to do that along the path just because of the opportunities that have been presented to me. I've become a trusted advisor to those people to the point where they have a message that they want to share and they're trusting me to hold that alongside them, either from a protection standpoint as an attorney or from a promotion standpoint as a marketer. And really, either way, that's the ultimate trust. If you're trusting me with your message, that's the ultimate thing. If you're trusting me with your art, that's the ultimate thing. And so for me, one of my first goals was to represent somebody in all major entertainment categories, whether it's artist, athlete, author, songwriter, or musician, because I wanted to represent the best. And I was able to hit that goal, and not in a way that was maybe how I expected it to be, and not in a way that was necessarily along the path. And it's honestly taken me a long time to understand, no, I'm supposed to be that message steward. I'm not supposed to create the message for me. I'm supposed to hold these messages and protect them for other people.
Yeah.
And so I love that I'm telling you to have a specific message. And it's taken me a really long time to understand that my specific message is to be that message bearer, steward.
Yeah.
Whether that's the art or the written word or whatever else.
Well, and let's talk about that. So when somebody, because I saw on your website, you have a lot of different techniques to help people get their message out. So if a Grammy award-winning songwriter is coming to you and that they want to share on other platforms, what does that discovery look like?
I think for us, it always comes down to the three cores is what we'll call them. The core message, the core audience, and the core values. The core message tells me who we're targeting. The core audience tells me to a T exactly who that is, right? The core message is the benefit. The core audience is who we're targeting. And then the core values are how we're going to do that. And so those are the guardrails that'll define the tactics. But if I can get those three things tied up in a bow, then I can set our team loose on saying, okay, well, for the songwriter, they're not going to be willing to write with everybody. They're going to try to continue to build their career by writing with the best of the best. Okay, well, if that's the case, we need to get them in a publishing company where they can write with the best of the best, and that might be my legal hat.
Okay.
But if they want to help other songwriters, and we've done that with a wonderful brand called Better Songs, you go out there and we put together the best songwriting content that we can from other Grammy Award-winning songwriters as well. And we kind of build this platform of education through the marketing side. And so you can build the outcome or the result based on those cores. But if you don't do that foundational work, you're going to be kind of grasping at straws or using a shotgun where you should be using a rifle to really narrow in on the target.
Yeah. And do people usually have an idea of what they want to do when they come to you? Or do you do like some market testing and help sometimes pivot them to say, you know what, this isn't probably going to really resonate with the audience as much as this other thing will, or at least not as quickly. So why don't we test this other thing first?
Absolutely. I mean, if you have been in marketing for any amount of time, and Annika, you know this, it's testing and iterating.
Yeah.
You have a hypothesis and you test it, and then you iterate based on the results, right? You can't control the result or outcome of marketing as much as you can control the process. And if you have a great process, then you're going to end up with a great result because you keep running the process over and over and over again until you hit on the tactic that's going to work. And so they might come in with an idea. We worked with a great personality expert on the Enneagram side, and she had just a great idea for a product. And we were honestly hesitant, but she had the gut. She knew the audience. And so she put together the product.
Oh.
The launch started happening and it wasn't going well. And she said, no, we need to do this, this, and this. Okay, well, we can facilitate that. And when we followed her lead, that launch ended up being a great success for their company because she knew the audience.
Okay.
And she knew the tactics that were going to resonate with that audience. And so, yeah, sometimes people come in like that. Other times they're coming into us and saying, I don't know who I'm talking to. And we have to really define, okay, well, here's who you're talking to. Yeah. And then let us just try some things as far as from a tactical standpoint so that we can determine the best way to reach those people. So it depends on the particular instance. And sometimes it's just a dance between both parties to say, okay, well, how are we going to try to do this? What does success look like? And how can we just work on the process so that we're continuing to move that flywheel forward to reach as many people as possible?
And this is your third business, correct? Can you talk about the journey of the other two? Because I think this is something that as entrepreneurs, we all have usually several startups in our past, and we left for various reasons, or we sold or whatever and moved on to what we, where we are now, and a place that hopefully we're more passionate about. So I'd love to hear about those and what that looked like.
Yeah, it's the third business I'll talk about. There's some other fits and starts along the way, as I'm sure every entrepreneur knows. But there are, one of them's a law firm that I still maintain. So I've had that business for a long time. I've joined with another practice on Music Row here in Nashville that just has some outstanding attorneys, and we're working together to help those clients continue to have the best representation possible. The second was a business formation and tax strategy company, so a business management company. Mm-hmm. That was based on the needs that I was hearing from my core customer. I knew that I wanted to be the answer for them, and they needed an answer in the tax world. Mm-hmm. And really, that may sound, again, like something out of left field, but no, I can be the facilitator to put together a plan by gathering the other experts. And so I'm going to gather some really smart tax people to put together on this thing for you to have a great outcome with that side of your business so you don't have to worry about it. And so you can create. Yeah. So it still aligned with what I was trying to become. I did not like running that business. It was very difficult to run because it was very deadline focused.
Oh.
As you can imagine, tax season is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't leave us a lot of time to create on the other side of the businesses or to make sure that everything was, falling into place, especially for Leverage Brands, which had been started about a year after I started that company.
Yeah.
And so I moved on from that company. It's still going in iteration today, which is great. A CPA took it on and is still servicing those clients really well. But for me, that wasn't the right business. That wasn't the right iteration of the passion. So you just continue to move forward until you find the right iteration of the passion to achieve what you're trying to achieve with your core message.
I love that. When you think about somebody's personal brand, what have you seen be some of the characteristics of brands that succeed versus brands that fail?
I think it all, maybe not all. I'm going to give my lawyer piece of brain a moment to say, not all, Chase. Generalizations are always wrong, right? But I think that a lot of personal brand success boils down to authenticity, especially right now.
Oh, yes.
Is it authentic for your brand to be in the place where you are talking to people? Number one. So from a social media standpoint, is it authentic for my author who's 74 years old to be on TikTok? I don't know.
It could be.
It could be.
Some people in that age generation do really well on it, but
right. Yeah. And it depends on that particular author's message and how it's communicated to the people, right? Is that going to be something that is authentic to who he is, where he is online? But the other thing is, from authenticity, you're really going to cut through to your message to talking to the right people, and they're going to find out. And so there's no real benefit to being inauthentic when you're building your personal brand. It might work for a while. It might work for a season, but eventually that authenticity is going to be the thing that bleeds through. And I think that's the difference between personal branding today and where it was in the early, let's say late 1990s and early 2000s. That was you, Inc. You were a corporation, pretty corporate face. And a lot of times people just didn't find out because there wasn't that level of access to personal brands as there is today. Now people are finding out, and you can't have inauthenticity and still have a personal brand that succeeds.
At least not for long. People will find out, and it won't be pretty.
Well, and I think you think about the personal brands that have been successful transitioning from the late 90s into today. They tell you everything.
Yeah.
You know exactly what's going on in their lives. You think about, this is probably a little too far down the path, but the reality TV world.
Oh, yeah.
How do they maintain personal brands? They share everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The brands that have made the transition successfully have shared everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so it's owning who you are and that authenticity that really permeates the culture. And that's what a personal brand's designed to do.
Yeah. Now, when you are working with an author, do you help with the book side, like the actual writing process, or are you more focused on the marketing side, what techniques you're going to use, whether it's social media, PR, book tours, etc., radio, whatever it might be, the other side, the strategy of the marketing of the book?
We want to be the resource. And so we want you to be able to come to us, and whether or not we're going to do the thing that we know is the right strategy for you, we're going to facilitate that on your behalf.
Okay.
And so if you come to us with a book and it's not written, can we get it ghost written for you? Can we get you somebody to work with you on the manuscript and edit it? Yes, we can do all of that. Book design, book covers, book promotion packages, book marketing. We can facilitate any of it because we have experience doing all of it. And so you're going to be working with an expert in your corner who can, judge, is this a good person to work with? Is this somebody that we would want to continue to do business with? Those sort of things. And the same on the digital marketing side. Do you need SEO? Do you need to up your customer service game? Are your products getting delivered well? How's your website? How's the web design? How's the development? How's the UI UX? We can do any of that because we've done all of it in the past and we have the resources to put in place. I'm not going to be coding your website. Right. If we get to that point, we're in trouble, right? Could I code your website? Maybe. I can do some great things in WordPress, but we don't need to have me doing that.
No.
We're going to oversee that strategy so it gets done and it gets done well.
Yeah. Fantastic. And when it comes to books, because I know on your website you talk about ebooks, but you've also talked about New York Times bestselling, which is not just ebooks, obviously. Do you make different recommendations to people depending on where they're at? If they're more famous or prestigious than where they are, like the things that you can build up for them?
Yeah, I think the number one thing with a book is what's your goal with it? Mm-hmm. Is your goal to make the New York Times list? Okay, well, that leads us down a very specific path. Is your goal to sell as many books as possible? Well, that may lead us down the same path as the New York Times path. Or if you have a great platform already, it may lead us into a different place because you have the audience in place. So you might not need a traditional publishing deal. You might need to do self-publishing or something along that line.
Yeah.
So I think that it's book specific and book goal specific. Do you just need a book to hold up on stage so that you can sell it in the back of the room? Great. We can make that happen too. Let's just be very specific about what you're wanting out of your book. And if you can be clear with your expectations, then we can put the process in place to get the result you're after.
Nice. And then you also help people with courses. My bigger question is, I've seen a few things that you help people with, I'd love to hear if there is a full roster of different tactics that you like to use.
Yeah, so the digital products that we have done in the past, we've done everything from like paid infographics, more or less, or presentations that people could white label, to the full-on digital course, to the mastermind session. Like Annika, I'm not trying to be boastful. I'm not trying to be prideful, but we've done it all because as a digital marketer, what's your role? It's to try everything. Got to determine what's the thing going to be that's going to succeed. And it's going to be different for different entities and different brands. And so we've had the opportunity to try a bunch of different stuff. And whether it's an ebook or a printed book or a course, or we've done all of those things because they've been necessary at different times of life for the messages that we were stewarding.
Well, and what's unique is that you've been able to do that where if you'd gone to school for it, you probably would have been pigeonholed into one area of expertise. And then perhaps you would have gotten left behind, particularly now with AI and needing to know the way that everything changes, whether it's cookies and privacy and how ads are served. So
did you think that I would ever need to have a specifically coded thing for GDPR compliance on a WordPress site? And that's my technical expertise, plugin, let's say. Who knew, right? Yeah. But as a message steward, your goal is to get the message to as many people as possible in the safest way to protect it. And so, you have to figure out all of these things. I think the future of marketing, you bring up AI, which is great. It's a great tool for marketers, right? We can move really, really fast. Mm-hmm. But the future of marketing from a digital standpoint is not verticals where you are kind of siloed.
Right.
It's being an omni-channel strategist where you can go to different things and say, we need to pull the SEO lever. That's not working anymore. Or the paid ads have really not been performing well. Let's ditch those and try this for now until we can get those paid ads back where we want them to be in Omni. So I think that omni-channel strategist is the new digital marketer because you can get any of the component parts done for you or done alongside of you very well, as long as they're staying in line with the strategy. What you don't want is the silos, because when people aren't talking to each other, your message gets convoluted and it doesn't pierce the noise.
Yeah. And then it also, as a client, I'd be angry because I wouldn't think my dollars were being spent very well.
Right. If you have one tool to use, if that doesn't work, then you're out, right? But if you have every tool at your disposal and the contacts and resources to go get those things implemented, then you have a lot of different options.
Yeah. Now, speaking of AI, do you have any favorite tools that you are particularly loving?
I'm a pretty simple AI guy right now. I'm ChatGPT. Ever since they got the images down, why do we even have Midjourney anymore? I can just use ChatGPT to do all of it. So for me, the things that I'm using AI for, I'm not so into the content generation for my team anymore. Other team members have used different tools along the way. But for me, having something that can do research at a massive scale, having something that can, pick up on voice for me and for emails and things like that, that's super helpful. But for me, it's more of like content or list generation for people that I want to talk to and I think would benefit from talking to us. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite client? You don't have to, I know it must be hard to think about playing favorites, but I'd just love to hear about one or two stories that really inspired you to say, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be helping people.
I think the most successful people that I've had the chance to be around, people who have had multiple Grammys or multiple nominations or multiple bestsellers across different industries and things like that. They're not my favorite clients, maybe for the reasons that you think. They're my favorite clients because they're never done learning.
Ooh, yeah.
They're incredibly coachable. They know their limits. I have a client who says, I will never sacrifice my family on the altar of my career. I won't do it. And so he took the necessary steps to not do that. The first 10 years of his writing career, he waited until everybody went to bed and then he started writing. So he took away his own time and he put out 4 books a year. Published works.
Oh my gosh.
In that time period. And he was taking his own time. And then he comes to us and asks us what he should do next. He shouldn't be asking us. He knows, right? He's had the tremendous success, but it's that coachability. And I want to maintain that. I want to continue to be coachable. If we're not learning, we're stagnating. And I'm not willing to do that. And that's something that I've learned from my clients is that no level of success removes the necessity of learning or looking for a coach or looking for a mentor to keep you moving forward. Because it's never the I've achieved it. It's the, what am I doing next?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I am a professor and I'm also a student, and I'm right there with you. We always have to be learning, especially if you're going into this field.
That's right.
There's no resting, but it's fun and it's something we can geek out on. And it's fascinating to learn new techniques of doing things or things that work really well or about algorithms or whatever the case may be, things that can help us do a better job for our clients. So
that's right. Yeah. Well, and Annika, you know this, but even in your students, and I taught for 5 years, even in your students, the ones who succeed are the ones who don't know it all yet.
Yeah.
As soon as they know it all, it's harder to get through. It's harder for them to learn from anybody. I had that author come to teach a class.
Oh.
And I looked in the classroom. He sold over 70 million copies of his books. This was a book publishing copyright law class at the university here. And he comes to teach the class, and you could see some students' eyes glaze over. I'm like, guys, this is the guy. Like, if you need to talk to anybody, he's it. And you're, okay, well, you've learned all you need to know, I guess. But you understand that more than most. It's just some people have that and some people don't. They have that coachability. They have that want to, and some people don't. And it evolves over time too. Once you have some success, or you can continue to be coachable, you're going to continue to understand that what got you here won't get you there, which is a great book by Marshall Goldsmith. But
I see books behind you. Are these two of your favorites?
This is subtle. That's my book right there. Every Step Counts.
Awesome.
Book marketing for authors. This is called The Chosen. I love it because it's our author, Jerry Jenkins. He wrote the novelization. His son produces the show. So it's a father-son affair, which is a lot of fun to see that generational impact of a message and of obedience.
That is really cool. I love that. And let's talk about your book because we haven't talked about that yet. So Every Step Counts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We worked with Jerry. He has a creative writing curriculum over at Colorado Christian University in Denver, I believe, maybe in Colorado Springs. Regardless, out in Colorado, they had this course. And as we were putting the curriculum together based on the things that he has taught in his Writers Guild, he tasked us with, kind of pulling that course together. And I think having an author marketing course would work really well for these people who want to become published writers. Because what does everybody say? You need a platform. And as I was building that course out, I just wasn't completely happy with any of the books that were out there. So I went to my co-founder, David, and I said, David, I have some news. It's February. We need to write a book. It's got to be about book marketing, and we need it by June.
Wow.
And he said, okay. To his credit, he said, okay, let's do it. And so that book's actually being taught at Colorado Christian University in their book marketing class for authors. Fantastic. But it's also available online. That was the impetus. I never thought I would write a book, and now we're working on the next one. So it's one of those things.
And is the next one also for authors, or is it for a different market?
It's a little broader. We're going to be talking about time management and kind of using personal experiences. How do you time manage? I don't know, but you somehow have to get to the point of saying, I'm going to get these things done. And so it's going to be about, how do we set goals? How do we reward ourselves when we achieve something? How do we make sure that we're not getting distracted? All of the things in the digital world, you're pinged on everything. So how are we going to continue to focus on the things that are actually important for us?
Yeah. I like that because that sounds like a very practical guide. I think a lot of books that are out there aren't necessarily going for the minds of the entrepreneur and all the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So because you're working on the business, you're working in the business, you have your clients, you're on podcasts, you have a lot of things to juggle.
Yeah, it's funny because even writing the book, I'm not an expert. I can just tell you what I've done to achieve what I have achieved, right? And for me, I have Post-its on my wall, and they're done in priority order from the urgent to the not urgent, and then what's waiting on me and what's waiting for other people. That might not help you. That might not be beneficial for you. That's how I'm doing it. But you need to have a system. Right. And it needs to be a system that works for you and makes sense in your mind. And I can't dictate what that system is for you. I can tell you what I do. But you need to find something that's going to work for you. Gives you that dopamine hit when you complete a task. It gives you the actual, that SMART goal framework is really strong because it's time-based.
Yeah.
And when you hit it, you know that you've hit it. It gives you a deadline, and you keep that deadline sacred. So I think that you're absolutely right, Annika. As an entrepreneur, you have a billion things that are vying for your attention. what are you going to let have your attention?
Yeah. Well, and to your speaking about your client earlier, family time was sacred. So then we have to make sure that we're not sacrificing our family time and those that we love for our businesses and for our clients as well.
Exactly right. Exactly right. My business partner always talks about priority.
Mm-hmm.
That's a singular word in the original language. We have pluralized it in Western thought. What is the priority? What's the main thing? That's why we want to get down to that core message from a branding standpoint. What's the main thing? And if we keep that main thing central, then everything else will fall into place. But if we try to have too many of them, you're not going to make any progress. You're going to be spinning your wheels, whether it's in time management or whether it's in branding.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody's listening to this and they are thinking about their brand and they're not very happy with where they're at, what is the first piece of advice that you'd give them?
Go back to the fundamentals.
Well,
are you sticking to that core message? Do you have it right? Is it you focused or is it your audience focused? Do you know who your audience is? You just start asking yourself questions until you get to the root of the problem. Why am I doing this one thing? Why am I putting out blogs every week? Is it because I'm getting traffic to the blogs and that traffic is yielding customers? Or is it because somebody told me 10 years ago that I need to put out a blog every week?
Yeah.
You have to identify the root cause of the issue. And a lot of the times what I have found is it's us. We're the problem. We're the bottleneck. We're the distracted one who's chasing after shiny objects. We're afraid. We're afraid of people knowing who we are or being authentic with the audience that we're trying to reach. And when those things are true, the good news is you can fix those things. The bad news is you can't fix them until your mindset changes.
Yeah.
So if you're really concerned about your message and you really believe it needs to get to as many people as possible, if that's true, what are you willing to look at in yourself? What are you willing to change about yourself to make sure that that happens?
Yeah. Awesome. Chase, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, family motto, verse?
The quote that I had in mind, because I saw this question in preparation, it's from a book that I don't know that anybody quotes out there, but it was a very good book. It's by the guy who founded CD Baby. And he says, don't waste years fighting uphill battles against locked doors. Improve or invent until you find massive success. I'll paraphrase the end because I don't have it in front of me. Improve or invent until you find that success. So when you just keep hitting the locked door, the answer is not to keep hitting that locked door usually. It's to improve or invent until you find that pathway around it. Yeah. And so I think that a lot of my life comes back to that quote, and there's deeper reasons to that, but a lot of it comes back to that quote because I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up till I reach the goal. And that's a way to not give up.
Yeah,
it's to be aware of the locked doors. Do
you want to share any of the others with us today, or you don't have to, but you can.
There's a verse in Ephesians. It's Ephesians 4:1. This is from the New Testament. It's the Apostle Paul. I believe he's imprisoned at the time that he's writing this. But he says, I urge you to live a life, or I urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling that you've been called. So with that high calling, are you going to walk in a manner that's worthy of the calling? That's why I'm not giving up. I want to walk in that manner worthy of the calling.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
And I know that we have a link that we're going to put in the show notes. So if somebody wants to meet with you, maybe get a consultation, you're doing 30-minute discovery calls. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have that one problem that's the locked door that we talked about, and you want to get around it, let's have a 30-minute discovery call. We'll talk through it. There could be next steps after that. There could not be. Maybe you hear something in the 30-minute call, or maybe you say something, which is, I found this to be true a lot. They say something in the 30-minute call and they're like, oh, that's it. Great. But I want to give you the time to kind of think about your business, work on the business, not in the business, like you mentioned, Annika. And that's what that 30 minutes is for. It's kind of a break in the day.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Chase, Neely, thank you so much. We're going to put everything for Leverage Brands in the show notes so people know how to find you easily, know how to get to your book, to your consultation services, and just learn more about how you guys operate business. But I can tell you work with a lot of integrity and authenticity, and I just really appreciate that. As we said, these are things that people demand of brands, but I can tell this isn't just lip service for you. It's who you really are. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you to everybody who has watched or listened to this episode. This is my favorite kind of conversation where I just get to talk to somebody and promote their brand who I want to be a cheerleader for. So Chase, thank you again for being here. Thank you again to everybody for watching or listening. I'll be back again with another great guest in a couple days. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.